Guests on Keel, guests on Keel heard via the Jack Spring Electric Keel Newsmaker hotline. The newest, the latest is Ronnie Jones. He is back again for about the ninth time this week. Mr. Ronnie is chairman of the State Gaming Control Board. Mr. Ronnie, welcome to Keel. Let's start here. Sneeze guards, masks, cubicles,
temperature checks.
Taken. Yeah. What's real? What's myth? What's story? What can you tell us?
You're going to hear a lot, and I'm going to channel the former mayor of New Orleans, Victor Skiro, who, on the approach of Hurricane Betsy, said, "Don't believe any rumors unless they come from me." And I'd say the same thing. There's a lot of information out there, and some of it is correct. What I can tell you is that once the governor makes a decision to permit gaming operations to resume in the state, it's going to look very different. There will be capacity limits based on the number of people who can be in a gaming space, just to ensure that social distancing is easier to accomplish.
What is that number going to be? Do we know that number?
We do not.
Okay.
I can tell you that the task force, the gaming task force, or the Resilient Louisiana Commission that I'm chairing, recommended 50%. But I keep hearing that it may be 25%. I know the American Gaming Association, that represents the industry, has suggested 35%. So I think it's safe to say that it's going to be 50 or less. But I don't know exactly what that number is going to be, and I don't know that the governor knows. He's going to consider the data throughout the end of the week and the weekend before he and his public health officials come to a firm number, and the industry will be okay with that. But the gaming floor itself is going to look very different. There will be devices that are turned off. In some truck stops where there's video poker, you may have plexiglass panels between the devices. A craps table that ordinarily might accommodate maybe 16 people might now only accommodate 6. So all the employees are going to have masks on. The industry is going to make masks available to customers and encourage them to wear them. I don't know that they're going to require customers to wear the mask, but I certainly think it's a prudent thing to do as we sort of transition back into business.
I sent you that piece from the Vegas TV station with the casino worker here saying they were actually being told they may not wear masks because all the plexiglass is going up. False?
Once again, I don't think that's correct. Plexiglass is not going to protect employees. It was a recommendation by the industry task force that all employees be provided with masks and required to wear them throughout every property. So that's the deal that's sort of been struck in Louisiana.
Guests wearing masks too?
How's about players, Mr. Ronnie? Will they? What's the story with that? Do you know?
The properties will screen customers as they come onto the gaming floor. There will be a temperature check. They will ask them a series of questions based on the CDC symptoms, and they will offer them a mask if they don't have one. They will not. I don't know of any property who has decided to require customers to wear a mask, but that's certainly within their latitude. If a casino, for example, is going, says to be on our gaming floor, you have to wear a mask. That's a business decision that they make based on their concern for public health. But at this point, the task force did not recommend that every guest, every customer at the property be required to wear a mask.
So this is sort of a two-parter just because I've got two great questions. That video that was allegedly of Margaritaville with literally looked like a gaming cubicle at a blackjack table where the player would be sitting in a plexiglass box. Was that for real? And the second part of the question sort of related to that, kind of related, is how's about servers? I mean, is tough to drink through a mask? Or will drinks still? How is all that going to work? Do you know?
I don't know how that's going to work, quite frankly. Let me deal with the first issue. That I actually got an email from Barry Regula, the general manager from Margaritaville. He had sort of a panic attack because that property was linked into some viral posting of this plexiglass enclosed gaming spaces. Barry's looking at all kinds of options. But at this point, that was not at Margaritaville in Bossier City. Plexiglass may be part of the environment, and that will be up to the properties. But even if there's plexiglass, the employees are still going to be required to be masked, period. As to your second issue, I don't know the answer to that. I actually brought that up in a discussion recently when we were talking about the new environment of customers on the floor and some having masks. There are a lot of smokers who go into casinos. I'm not sure, but I don't think you can smoke through a mask. And I certainly don't think, I have some experience with drinking, and I don't think you can drink through a mask either. So if they're going to enjoy beverages and if they're going to have a cigarette, they're obviously going to have to take a mask off if they've come in with it. So these are things kind of getting into the weeds that we don't know how we're going to be dealt with yet. But it's going to be a different place, obviously. But I think what's important is really for the governor and the RLC is to find a path to get businesses open, and at some point, casinos would be included in those openings. We just don't know when that's going to be.
Okay. You just said we don't know when that's going to be. You're quoted as saying they could possibly be open by the end of the month. Possibility?
I think it's certainly a possibility. And that discussion, we've had that discussion in each of our teleconferences with the task force. Every teleconference we have all talked about, so when is the date? Because that's what's important to the industry. There's only one person who knows the answer to that question, and I don't think he's really decided that yet. We may know more next week, but I'm hopeful that by the end of the month, casinos will be given the opportunity to open back up in some limited way.
So you've got plexiglass, and you've got masks, and you've got whatever it has, social distancing, but you've still got cards and chips and cash. Doesn't that sort of compromise all of that?
Very perceptive. That is precisely the discussion that the dean of Tulane's Public Health and Tropical Medicine and I had 2 weeks ago. We worked through most of the issues. He helped my task force come up with the conditions under which they should reopen: mask, temperature checks, things like that. And when we got to the end of the discussion, we talked about, okay, so where are the remaining vulnerabilities? And you hit it. That's precisely, this is a cash business, right? They can clean chips. That business model for cleaning chips in Vegas has really taken off. I can tell you that. Cards, they would not recycle cards probably as they do as much in the pre-COVID days. They will use new decks of cards. There may be rules in place where customers aren't permitted to touch the cards. That's really where the vulnerability is. I don't think you can take a casino and make it absolutely risk-free, as any business. No business in the state will not come opening without some degree of risk. What we want to do is minimize that to the extent that we can.
Erin's got a card question. She's jumping up and down.
Ronnie, if I knew someone that played poker, I got to touch that person would have to touch the cards.
That's true, but there are some recommendations that have been made in Vegas about alternate means of either taking those poker tables out of service entirely or redefining the rules. And I'm not a poker player, but I know you have to look at cards to play poker.
Yeah,
and that's an issue that's good. And gloves aren't going to help you, because if the virus is on the cards, you're simply going to get it on your gloves, and you're going to pass it from your gloves to something else, to another card.
Ronnie, there is currently in place a protocol, or was in place, a protocol for gamers, for players who wanted to come onto the boat with a medical mask. And it involved a photograph and all kinds of stuff. Gaming is a business based on, to a great degree, cameras and surveillance and all kinds of stuff. How are you going to handle a situation where you've got 100 or 150, whatever the percentage works out to be, of allowed admission? How are you going to work that with people with masks all over?
We've had that discussion. State police serves ex officio on this task force. So long as the mask, that if a person brings a mask onto the property, as long as it just covers the nose and the mouth, at the initial screening point where they come through security, if there are any security concerns about the size of that mask, that it is masking other facial features that create a security risk, they'll be taken aside. There'll be some follow-up, perhaps photographs will be made. Ultimately, that property will make a decision as to whether or not that person will be permitted if they have sort of a non-compliant mask. But state police has expressed that concern. They're aware of it. This is something we're going to have to work through. But I think it's manageable. I just think it's something that the casino industry is willing to work through those kinds of issues to get reopened and get people back working again.
One more thing, Ronnie. I know we're keeping you long. We know a lot of casino workers here are making more money staying at home than they will be coming back to work, and they have lots of concerns about their own health and safety, and they're saying, I'm just going to stay on the couch. Are industry folks telling you that is a monstrosity of a problem?
They didn't use that word, but they have certainly all expressed concern about the ability to get employees to come back to work. That's going to be something that, and an employee may choose not to come back to work for either or both of those reasons. They may have public health concerns because of, their own vulnerability, and they may be making more money. And it may be a combination of the two. And if they're offered their job, come back to work, and they elect not to, then that certainly, I would think, as an employer, if I were the employer, that would put their future position at that property at risk. It's a problem that the industry is aware of. They don't know how big of a problem it's going to be until they get the word that, in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, you're going to be able to open, and then they can start trying to bring employees back. But the short answer to the question is, Aaron, yes, they're aware of it. They know it's a problem, but we just don't know how big of a problem right now.